Hey, welcome back everyone. Today we are making French macarons, and don't worry, this is a beginner-friendly recipe. Here's a snapshot of our ingredients, but make sure you check below in the description box for exact measurements and details. We are going to get started by taking a small amount of vinegar on a paper towel and thoroughly wiping around the inside of your bowl. Then do the same for your silicone mats, allowing them to dry for a few minutes. This ensures that there's no oils left on the surface that could affect the outcome of the macarons while baking. If you're using parchment paper, no need to wipe it down. Alright, let's get into it by cracking 2 room temperature eggs into a bowl to separate the egg whites. Save or discard the yolks. It's very important that you don't have any trace of egg yolk in the whites, or else your meringue won't whip up. Once you have them separated, then you can pour it into the bigger mixing bowl. Today I'm using my KitchenAid stand mixer, but by all means you could use a hand mixer. I don't recommend doing it by hand using a whisk because that's a lot of work and strain on your arms and wrist. Mix the egg whites on medium speed until it starts to become frothy. The time it takes will depend on the mixer you're using. Just keep an eye on it. Here I have another bowl fixed with a sifter. Measure out 1 cup of powdered sugar and pour it into the sifter. Next, measure out 3/4 cup of almond flour and add it to the sifter as well. I'm using Nature Eats almond flour, but Blue Diamond is a great brand as well. Using a whisk or your hand to tap the sifter, mix the powdered sugar and almond flour together until it has all been sifted together into the bigger bowl below. Discard the remaining lumps that are left into the garbage and then whisk your flour mix a bit and set it to the side while we check in on the egg whites. Alright, checking back in on our meringue, it has started to become frothy, so while it's still mixing, I'm going to add a pinch of cream of tartar, about less than 1/8 of a teaspoon. Now measure out 1/4 cup of sugar and slowly pour it into the meringue. Once it's all in, adjust your mixer speed to high. Switching back to our dry mix, let's sift the powdered sugar and almond flour one more time just to be sure there aren't any chunks or clumps left. Same as before, pour the dry ingredients into the sifter and use your whisk to strain it through thoroughly, then discard the small pieces that are left. This is how it should look. Now set it aside until the meringue is finished. I know it's a bit of jumping back and forth, but now we're going to check to see how our meringue is doing. So use the whisk to pick up a bit and look at how the peak flops over. This means it's still too soft to be ready, but this is a good stage to add your color. I'm using a little under 1/8 teaspoon of Wilton's green gel today, but if this is your first time, you don't have to add color at all. If you can't get all the color off the measuring spoon, then you can just use a toothpick to scrape along the sides. Now return your mixer to high speed for another 5 to 10 minutes and watch your color incorporate beautifully. Alright, we are finally done mixing. Use your whisk to pick up a bit and look at how stiff the meringue is. This is the stage you want to get to. Also take notice at how thickly it's gathered on the whisk. Take your spatula and gather the meringue from around the bottom and sides of the bowl. Give it a small mix, then smooth it out. Grab your dry mix and pour in about 1/3. Now using the spatula again, gently stir and fold the dry mix in until it's fully incorporated into the meringue. Go ahead and add the second third of the dry mix and repeat what you did before. Gently stir and fold until it's completely mixed into the meringue. Making sure you're also scraping along the bottom and sides of the bowl to get everything. Now for the last and final third, this is where we are going to start our macaronage process and only gently fold the mixture against itself. Macaronage essentially means just working the batter until it becomes smooth, flowing, and somewhat kind of shiny. Pay close attention to how I am going along the outside edges of the meringue to gather it and then interfold it against itself. It's important that you don't overmix. Here and there, you'll also see me cut into the middle of the batter and fold it against itself too. I know this is a lot of arm work, but it'll be totally worth it once you're sitting back eating your macarons. Now that I've folded it a few times, let's check it. Pick up a scoop of the batter with the spatula and watch how it flows off. You see how it just broke off mid-flow? That means it's not ready yet. Continue mixing the batter by doing the folding technique and stopping to check the batter every 5 to 10 folds or so. The batter is ready once it has a completely smooth flow off the spatula without breaking. It should resemble a lava flow or even be able to do a figure 8. Alright, now my batter is perfect. Look at how it flows off the spatula without breaking, and also note how it also doesn't absorb back into the batter right away. Here I have 2 different piping size tips and a piping bag. I suggest using the bigger piping tip because it flows easier, but the smaller tip will give you more control over how much of the batter comes out at one time. Whichever you choose, affix it to your piping bag and then bend the tip up when placing it inside your cup so that the batter doesn't run out. Pour all of your batter into the piping bag, remembering to scrape along the bottom and sides to get all of it. Then twist the top of the piping bag and let's get piping. Alright, so to make sure your macarons are piped correctly, hold your piping bag straight over the dot placement and squeeze just enough batter that it just barely fills up the inside circle. The batter will eventually flatten out and kind of fill out to the outer edge itself. You'll also see that I have a small circular flick to round off the piping. This helps to not create peaks or little nipples at the top of your macarons. Once you're finished piping the macarons, we are going to release the trapped air bubbles by tapping the trays on the counter a few times or by using your hands to hit the back of the tray. Now it's time to let them rest and dry. This process can take anywhere from 20 minutes to up to an hour and a half, and it really just depends on your environmental conditions. You'll notice during this time the macarons will go from shiny to slightly dull and form a skin on the surface of them. This time, go ahead and preheat your oven to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. It helps to have an oven thermometer to accurately know the temps so you can make adjustments. After some time has passed, give them a slight touch, and if they're still tacky, leave them to dry a bit longer. If they have formed a skin, the macaron will be dry to touch. Bake at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 to 20 minutes. It's truly going to depend on your specific oven though, but feel free to do some trial and error to see what works for you. Here's a peek about halfway through cooking. Some people rotate their trays at this point to ensure even cooking, but I'm not going to do it because it's not needed. So let's give them a rest so they can completely cool off before touching or trying to pick them up. If you pick them up too soon, you might rip up the bottom since it hasn't completely set yet. Now, the best thing about macarons is the multitude of flavors that you can make by just switching up the filling flavors. Now, even when following these steps to a T, macaron results will vary. Again, there are so many factors that play a huge part, and the slightest thing can affect the outcome of the macarons. Some factors can be over mixing or under mixing the meringue, over and under mixing the macaronnage, piping incorrectly, not getting air bubbles out, baking too short or too long, oven temp is too low or too high, or the air is too humid or too dry in your home. The outside weather, the quality of your almond flour or egg whites not sifting correctly, or even just the quality of the food color that you used. So you don't need to worry about not getting it correct the first time. It's going to take a lot of patience and practice. Literally trial and error over and over. But it gets easier the more you make them, and eventually you'll get it. Stay consistent and stay motivated. Here I have an airtight container that I like to put my macarons in to age in the refrigerator. But any container or any Ziploc bag will do. Just make sure that it's something solid, that they're not hitting against each other too much, that they will break apart. If you like, you can eat them right away, but I find them to taste the best after about 24 to 48 hours of aging or chilling in the fridge. Once they're done aging or to your liking, go ahead and eat them. If you enjoyed this recipe, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the next video.